Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Brawl in the Family podcast. I'm Chris Seward, and with me is the illustrious Matthew Taranto.
Well, hello.
And today we're going to be discussing Advance Wars, as well as giving out awards for the best games of last year.
That's right, the 2016 BitF. Yeah, you wanna introduce Advance Wars?
Advance Wars came out on the Game Boy Advance in 2001. It was the first Wars series game to be released in America, but there was actually several games that were released in Japan before it. Advance Wars is basically like a strategy game like Command & Conquer or StarCraft, where you can make units and you go to war against your enemy you have a map and you have like bases and you build tanks and infantry and stuff and go across the environment to take out the enemy.
Right, but it's more of a turn-based kind of game rather than real-time strategy like
exactly.
like StarCraft. Yeah.
So it's like StarCraft mixed with chess. There's like that strategic element of it that lets you deliberate on your moves and weigh the risk and rewards of each move in a way that's very satisfying. The game actually also sold well and succeeded because it had a lot of character to it. There's a lot of like memorable characters. It's very colorful. It's kind of funny, and there's a lot of replayability to the missions.
Yeah, that's one of the things that really appealed to me about Advance Wars, which, by the way, I didn't really get into this series until it came to the Wii U on the Virtual Console when I finally gave it a try. But that was one of the things that immediately stuck out to me was how flippant they are about, the whole going to war thing. Everyone's just kind of having a good time, and it doesn't really have that weight behind it, which I think works to the game's advantage because it makes it, feel more like a video game. It's kind of fun. You don't really want to get too dramatic with it. It embraces that element pretty well, I think.
And it also has a fun multiplayer mode. So in addition to the single player campaign and all of it, I think the first one also had the skirmish maps.
Oh, yeah. I think they call it like battle maps or something. You go to the shopkeeper guy.
Did the first one have battle maps? I don't recall.
They did. It's kind of a neat little macro sort of management thing where throughout the game you collect money based on your performance, and then you could take them to the shopkeeper and buy things like other COs and extra maps and things to play on. And there's a bunch of built-in maps in addition to the main campaign that you can go and play on, challenge the computer or friends, or you could even make your own maps. And that was all there from the first Game Boy Advance game.
And a couple years later, they released Advance Wars 2, Black Hole Rising, which I thought was kind of a lackluster sequel. It has like one new tank, and most of the other stuff is kind of the same, and I didn't think that the new COs were as interesting personally. What did you think about the second one, Matthew?
I liked it a lot. I just, I agree that they didn't add a whole lot to it. There was the one new unit was the Neo tank, which was basically like a bigger, badder version of the medium tank. And I think, though, the other element that they added was, in addition to CO powers, you now had super CO powers. So there was there was a star meter now for the CO powers instead of the universal bar that everyone had. And what I thought was kind of cool about this was it kind of let them balance the CO powers a little bit better. For instance, in the first game, I found Eagle's power were like really, really good. Like his lightning strike, where all his units could move again, all his non-infantry movement units. But in the second game, they made that power, require kind of a lot of stars. So it became something that's more balanced. Like you can either get someone who can use their power more often, or you can use someone like Eagle who has a really good power, but it takes a little longer to get to.
Oh, I thought that in the first game that the different CO powers charged at different rates. Do you know if that's true?
Oh, that might be true. I'm not 100% sure because it's a little hard to tell when you don't have the
stars
universal meter. Yeah. So you might be right on that one. But otherwise, this game felt like pretty much an extension of the first one. So much so that actually when they released these games in Japan, the first two were bundled together. Advance Wars 1 and 2 were on one Game Boy Advance cartridge. For some reason, we got Advance Wars in the US on its own. I don't think Japan got that, which is weird because they had several games, like you said, in Japan before then.
The series actually started in 1988 on the original Famicom. They called it Famicom Wars. That's the series as a whole is known as the Wars series because they just call it they take the console name and slap it with Wars and they got the title. And I'm not very familiar with the original games, but they're all only in Japan. And there were several on the Game Boy, one on the Super Nintendo.
from what I've read, they started with just Red Star versus Blue Moon. Those are like the two combating forces. And I think when they brought it over to the US, they decided to make it Orange Star because Red Star was kind of like communism kind of thing.
Yeah.
Going, you know? So they relocalized that. And I think the other two world forces, which are Green Earth and Yellow Comet, I think those came a little later in the Super Famicom one. And then, of course, the Game Boy Advance games added Black Hole, which was kind of the big bad, that they're all teaming up against.
Right. So after that came Advance Wars Dual Strike, which is my favorite of the series. It added the ability to have two COs at once.
Yep.
Which allows for these tag team abilities and a lot of really cool strategy regarding which two COs you pick and how their advantages and disadvantages mix together. Yeah,
so like for instance, one character would have cheaper units to buy, but his units would be weaker. That'd be Colin. And then you'd have another character who has really good, air units, but maybe not good sea units. So like if you started with Colin and bought several units on the cheap and then switched to the other guy, you would have the advantage of the low cost plus, whatever advantages your second CO had.
Yeah.
So there was definitely a lot of neat little combos you could do like that, and their CO powers also worked in tandem for the the titular Dual Strike, which basically let you, once you filled up both meters, let you activate both CO powers one after another and essentially take 2 turns in a row.
And I'll take this opportunity to point out how much I like this CO power system. It charges more quickly if you're actually getting the raw end of the deal. So if you're losing, your bar is going to charge up a lot faster, which means that the person who's kind of on their back foot is going to be able to have this last-ditch effort to swing the things back in their favor.
It's kind of a very Nintendo-y way to self-balance the game. It's kind of similar to the blue shell effect in Mario Kart.
Yeah. People, I'm sure there's many people who've played Advance Wars who, get wiped out one turn just because the person they're against had the CO power and they used it just right. And
it can definitely make a huge difference.
Yeah, but it adds a lot to the strategy to have to play around that, to understand, well, if I do this, they're going to charge up their power and I have to, I can't, cluster my units here. I can't do something that'll let them take full advantage of it.
Right. And it helps kind of work in the game's favor as well, because I think one of the differences between this and Fire Emblem, which Intelligent Systems also worked on, is that Fire Emblem is kind of more defensive. You don't want to lose anyone. In this game, you're rewarded for playing offensively in general, because the attacker has the advantage. You bring your infantry in and attack his infantry. Your guys go first, and then the opponent's infantry will attack based on who they have left. So you'll shoot down like several of their guys, and then they'll shoot you. So it'll be like 10-10 turns into 8-5 or something. So that's kind of what helps with the with that aggressive approach as well. It's got that flip side of being able to counter if your opponent has just been spanking you.
As I recall, Dual Strike had a lot of content. It had a lot of the maps from the last 2 Advance Wars games, but it added a lot of new maps, new COs, and just a lot of new modes and stuff. What is your perspective on that? You've played it more recently than I have.
Yeah, actually, I was introduced to Dual Strike just maybe 2 months ago when they released it for the Wii U. I had never played it before, and it does feel a lot like they just kicked everything into overdrive. Like there's stat tracking on a scale of like a Smash Brothers game, and you even get medals based on each of these things, like units built. A number of infantry built it's X amount for this medal and Y amount for this medal. And they do that for like 50 different statistics. And, well, probably more than that, maybe like 100 different statistics, I think. And they also have this fun little real-time game called Combat Mode, where you're controlling a guy in real time and you're trying to take bases and stuff. And it's kind of a fun diversion. It's actually really difficult. They got the whole, building bases and stuff. And one of my favorite elements about the game is that they now have a little bit more of a carryover from stage to stage. Not so much to where it becomes kind of overwhelming, but your COs will gain experience based on how well you do, and when they reach higher ranks, you can give them these particular skills that increase their parameters in various ways. Like if someone gets to rank 1, you could choose to increase their direct attack by 5%, or their indirect defense, by 8% or whatever. And this continues until rank 10, where you'll just unlock a different skin for them, like a new costume. So if you want to max out everybody, it can take a long time, and it kind of encourages you to use the different characters as well, so you can kind of try out their different strengths and things. And speaking of which, there's a lot of characters. There's I think the first game had maybe 9 or 10 COs you could unlock. The second game had maybe double that, and this one has, I think they're kind of pushing 30. There's a good amount of them, and when you add all those different elements, like the tag team element and the different skills, you really have a lot of different ways to approach each of the maps. So yeah, it feels like a really big game, and yeah, I've really enjoyed it. In fact, this kind of ties to our 2016 BitFs, but I actually like Dual Strike more than any game that came out this year that I played. So that says something about Dual Strike and this year's lineup of games. So yeah, but yeah, Advance Wars, I think, for a series that I was introduced to only this generation, I was really impressed by it. I kind of regret missing out on it. It really does feel a lot like an advanced version of chess. I think it's balanced extremely well. I think there's a lot to do in it. And, I mean, these are all elements present from the first game, but I think all three of the games are really good. And I think any Nintendo fan who's not tried them yet should give them a shot, because you may be surprised.
Yeah, I agree. I think for both series, for Advance Wars and for Fire Emblem, I'd like to go on the record and say that I've recommended you to play them for many years before you actually did.
That's true. That's true. You can lord that over me.
Yes, because, that I shall.
Yeah, because I kind of regret not getting into those a little sooner. They ended up being actually pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah. Now, speaking of Fire Emblem, that game has gotten a resurgence lately, but I'm still waiting for Advance Wars to have something similar, like bust out the 3D models and the whatnot, and I know Awakening became kind of this big deal for the series, and a lot of people were like, oh, they added this whole wife thing, and that's how it got popular. But I mean, I'm fine with that. Whatever. Let me marry Sammy or whoever if it means another Advance Wars. So
absolutely,
bust
I agree
out the
with that.
waifu simulator or whatever.
Yeah,
they call
totally.
it these days.
We need to switch Advance Wars.
Yes,
Switch Wars, definitely.
I would love Switch Wars. I think that'd be great.
Yep.
So there was a little spin-off series from Advance Wars as well. You want to tell us about that, Chris?
Yeah, Battalion Wars came out on the GameCube, and it was more of a action game. They still had kind of bases and kind of a similar overall design of each stage, but it was more of a third-person action game.
And you'd switch between the different characters, right?
Yeah, so you kind of jump around the map. I haven't played a lot of them. I remember, I think I rented Battalion Wars, or I played the second one on
the Wii.
The Wii, I guess. But I think you've actually had more experience than I have, right?
I've rented the first one. I rented the first one once, and I played it before I played any of the Advance Wars games. I remember being skeptical at first, but I actually ended up liking it from what I remember playing. It had kind of it felt pretty unique to me. I think I hadn't played a lot of third-person action games that had that kind of strategy element to them. So I'd actually be interested in trying the Wii one at some point. But I would say I'd probably prefer the Advance Wars games. But it actually, Battalion Wars was pretty interesting for what it was, from what I remember.
Graphic style of the Battalion Wars games was, unique to them, really. I thought that I really liked the graphics in the Advance Wars series. It's very colorful, very engaging, and the COs and the characters are very likable, and they're designed in a way that is very appealing. Yeah, the Battalion Wars games didn't quite have that.
They had more of a Western look.
Yeah,
and I think it's because there's a different team entirely that was working on them.
Yes, that's correct.
I think for us, the Western kind of style of, I guess, military style of game is, even though we haven't gotten a lot of cartoony games like that, it doesn't feel as unique to us as kind of the what Advance Wars is going for. So yeah, I might agree there. I think the characters have a lot of appeal from the from the original handheld games. So I said original handheld games, but there's one more that I haven't played, and kind of ties right into art style changes and things.
Yeah.
So tell us something about Days of Duel. Tell us about the last one, Chris. I can talk.
Advance Wars Days of Ruin.
There we go.
It's I feel like with this game, they felt like the style of the previous games had gotten a little long in the tooth. So for 3 Advance Wars games in a row, they basically had this, same cast of characters, the same world, the same story,
and a lot of the same visuals too.
Yeah,
Spikes.
So I understand their desire to shake things up. And there is a lot of good things about Days of Ruin. I think the soundtrack's good. I think the characters are generally likable, but it's a bit more of a gritty, realistic world by comparison. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure that they really have the writing chops to make that work. There are story elements that are that involve killing people, and that's not really something that was present in the original Advance Wars games. The original Advance Wars games almost feel like, they're all just playing around almost. Like
the soldiers get shot and they kind of fly off the screen.
Yeah,
it's a little nebulous. I mean, they're using weaponry, but it's
you have these kids that are in charge of the army, and they're all just kind of having fun together. The violence in the game is not like, oh, the enemy army overran our city and murdered everybody. Yeah,
it's sort of vague and kind of lighthearted. You're not supposed to think about it too much, I think.
Yeah, but in Advance Wars Days of Ruin, they basically gave it a dystopian future sort of setting where civilization has collapsed and people are struggling to have enough food to eat. And there's roving bands of, bad guys that are just going around killing people. And I could see all that working, but it's not incorporated into the gameplay at all. You never really feel like you have to, it still has the Advance Wars gameplay where you're going to lose a lot of units. That's just how the game works,
Yeah.
I don't remember the specific examples, but there were definitely moments where I felt that part of the narrative kind of held the game back a bit. I think it was ambitious, and they just didn't quite have the execution necessary to pull it off.
Would you call the storytelling and tone darker than your average Fire Emblem game?
Yeah.
Okay, because they got some killing
it was a step darker, much darker than the original Advance Wars games. Okay. So the gameplay is still pretty good. And like I said, I like the music and but there's actually a lot less bonus content. Partially because they changed everything so much that they couldn't really, just roll everything from the previous games into it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But there's really not the same battle. What's it called? Battle mode?
The battle maps.
Yeah, there's no battle maps.
Oh, that is weird.
Yeah,
so it's really just the one-player game.
Yeah,
huh.
Yeah. There is multiplayer.
Well, I'd probably try it out. It sounds a little weird, but if it has, if it's got good core gameplay, I guess that's the important thing. And I'm kind of curious about it, just because of all the mixed things I hear about it.
Yeah, it's definitely still a decent game. I think it was a little disappointing to me after the wealth of content in Advance Wars DS.
Yeah,
it has the campaign, and that's really the main thing you're playing, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd still say, since you've been on such a kick on the series recently, I'd still recommend getting it and just seeing it, trying it out.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess that's a full retrospective on the series. Once again, for any of you who haven't tried it out, I would definitely, both of us would definitely recommend it. You could start with the first game, or you could jump straight to the third one. Yeah,
that's what I'd recommend. Advance Wars DS. It has everything that's good about the previous games, and it's pretty much got a lot of content from them anyway. So I think it's definitely the pinnacle of the series. Although I agree the previous two are good as well. But if you just want to start with one, I'd say start with DS.
Okay. Yeah, I think I might rank the original just at I don't know. I might rank the original highest just because it had
innovation factor.
The innovation factor, you gotta take that into consideration. I also think it's kind of a nice introduction to the series just because it's kind of gradual with the tutorials and stuff.
But Matthew, wouldn't the innovation factor only apply to the first game on the Famicom in 1988?
Oh, that's a good point, Chris. I haven't played that one. So I can't say for sure.
So you only give innovation factor to the one that you've played. So it's.
You're saying my system is flawed, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's not flawed. It's perfect. It's a great system. Look, if they want to bring over Famicom Wars, I can re-evaluate the original Advance Wars. Until then, it's pretty darn good. And well, that said, like I said, Dual Strikes. Why can't I? Is it Dual Strike? Yeah, Dual Strike is still a fantastic game and one of my favorite of the year, even though it didn't even come out this year. So it would be one of my favorite.
Speaking of favorites, we have some BitFs to give out.
It's the BitFs! Now, 2016 was, I think it became like a meme, when it's like, 2016, so bad. It's like a bad year. You know? It's a meme. But, looking through this list of video games, I think I can agree. 2016 was a pretty bad year.
It was pretty rough. It was pretty rough.
So, before we get to our games, I'd like to say that I did release a game this year, my first game, Tadpole Trouble, and I'm not counting it on any of my list, obviously, even though I'm proud of it. And it's number 4 on Metacritic for 2016 Wii U games, which I'm also excited for. I can't look at it objectively, so this is not counting Tadpole Trouble and counting everything else that I've played. All right, before we get to our top games, we have a few superlatives to give out, some special awards. All right, so my first one is Best Bad Controls. And my Best Bad Controls goes to Star Fox Zero. Because of all the bad controlling games I played this year, Star Fox Zero had the best bad controls. What I mean by that is the controls are kind of weird, and they took a lot of getting used to, but it also invited this fairly dedicated little group of people to really shoot for the high scores, and once you get used to them, you can actually do some pretty cool things yourself. So they're kind of good, they're kind of bad, they're the best bad controls of the year.
The BitF for best game that everyone won't stop talking about but isn't actually that good goes to Overwatch.
I haven't heard you talk about Overwatch, but I have heard everyone else talk about it.
Haven't you? Yeah, it's like people cannot stop talking about this game.
Tell me about Overwatch.
Well, it's like Team Fortress 2 except not as deep. That's kind of it. Like
I like the way you say stuff. It's like this except not as good. Yeah. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. They basically take Team Fortress 2, but they added in like a variety of classes that all do different things, and the classes are all very different from each other, which is nice. The graphics are nice. Music's pretty good. Like Blizzard employs a lot of really excellent artists, so all their games look really nice. And Overwatch is no exception. But they added in like ultimate abilities, kind of like Dota or League of Legends or games like that, where every so often you can do a really strong ability and kill everybody if you do it right. The thing is, I don't think it's very competitively balanced. It's like the sort of game where you'll hop on and play a few, and then just it's a casual gaming experience, which is fine, I guess. But I'm always a fan of more complicated games, so I can only play so much of this game before I'm like, it's okay. That's the bottom line. It's okay.
It's okay. Overwatch. It's okay.
Yeah.
According to Chris. All right. So my next thing is longest game ever. Dragon Quest VII: Fragments of the Forgotten Past. This game is long. I've put over 80 hours into it, and there's no end in sight. I don't think it actually has an ending.
My award for best game that you play every few years when the expansion packs come out is World of Warcraft Legion.
Oh.
I was suckered in once again to getting it. This happens every once in a while where they have a new expansion, everyone says it's the best expansion ever, and you buy it and then realize that it's just the same as all the other ones, and then you never play it again.
You and Blizzard, man, you guys have a history.
Yeah, we do. It's definitely a hate-hate relationship.
All right, so my next one is best multiplayer on a Nintendo system, since I haven't played anything else. Rhythm Heaven Megamix. So they had a Rhythm Heaven sort of compilation / sequel on the 3DS. All in all, is a solid game, and it actually has a really fun multiplayer version, built in, where you can go through the songs together, and you try to beat a specific amount of songs with a specific score. I don't know. There wasn't much multiplayer stuff for this year, and that one was pretty good. So I guess that gets my multiplayer award.
Best game that isn't really a game goes to Pokemon Go.
Oh,
as we discussed in the bits a while ago, I thought it's a neat app, but I do not think it's a very good game, and I'm kind of surprised that it's hung on as long as it has. A lot of people still play it. A lot of people still walk around, catch Pokemon, and I'm kind of surprised because they haven't added a lot to it. It's pretty much the same.
Okay.
No, not really. They actually took out a feature, the Pokemon tracking feature, and I don't think they've replaced it or put anything in like it. So it's even less than it was when it came out. They'll probably add like more Pokemon and stuff, but I think that's it.
Favorite series that I discovered this year, Zero Escape. I played all 3 of the games in this series this year. I talked about it in the bits, and they released the 3rd game in the summer. And all in all, I really enjoyed it.
Best game that I didn't like that everyone else seems to like is Paper Mario Color Splash.
It's the best game, but it got your award for best game.
Best game that I didn't like. Okay. Yeah, because I mean, it's a competently made game. I guess it just feels so by the numbers. Like I'll link here to my review of it in
paint by numbers.
Yeah, it is a paint by numbers game. I got no. It did not feel like an inspired title to me.
All right. So my Too Much of a Good Thing award goes to Fire Emblem Fates. I have kind of conflicting feelings about Fates. I loved Awakening to the point where it was almost my favorite game of, I think 2013 was when it came out. Only behind A Link Between Worlds. Fates, they released 3 games at once, and they're all pretty similar to Awakening from what I understand. I got through most of Birthright, but I didn't quite finish it, and then I kind of lost interest because it's kind of too much of a good thing. It's not like the game was made poorly or anything. There are a few elements that I think Awakening did better, but there are also a few elements I think were welcome in Fates. It's just, I feel kind of overwhelmed by this trio of games all hitting the 3DS right after this other game came out instead of a new Advance Wars, for instance. The last thing I want to focus on, last superlative, is the biggest game I didn't play, so everyone will yell at me for not playing it and calling 2016 a crummy year for games. Pokemon Sun and Moon.
Yeah.
And the second biggest game that I didn't play, so everyone will yell at me for not playing it and calling 2016 a crummy year for games, Pokemon Go. I guess Overwatch should be in there too, but I wasn't even thinking about PC stuff.
What about hashtag FE?
Oh yeah, well, that got pretty good reviews, but I don't really hear, it didn't really get much of a following.
Yeah.
So it's I am gonna make a mention of all the games I didn't play, just for whatever reason. But in a moment. So next we'll look at our runners-ups for the games of the year. Go ahead, Chris. Take it away.
Well, my first runner-up for game of the year is Metroid Prime Federation Force, which I wouldn't have suspected would make this list because I'm kind of a jerk when it comes to reviewing things. So when it was announced, it got all this bad press and nobody liked it. Blah blah blah. But it's actually really fun, and I think it has a lot of replayability. Especially if you have friends who like to play it. Like, I just played it on my own and played it online. But, if you have actual friends who will play it with you, then it's actually really fun.
Okay, cool.
So, that gets a runner-up for me. Well, and my other runner-up is the PC game XCOM 2, which, since we're on the topic of, strategy games mixed, they're like chess games, it's kind of like that, except with aliens. It's like Advance Wars in a lot of ways. You'd actually probably like it. Yeah. They made a lot of good changes compared to the first one. They changed the whole approach of the game so that you're more of a guerrilla force who's fighting against the aliens that have taken over the world. Whereas the first one, like, the aliens are kind of the guerrilla force, and just based on the way the gameplay works, it works a lot better in XCOM 2, I think. But there's still a number of issues with it that kind of holds it back from being a game of the year contender, like the actual game of the year for me.
Okay.
But fortunately, there's a really good modding scene. So the new Long War is coming out. That is like there was a Long War mod for the first XCOM, which basically it's like, okay, think of if you had a mod for Advance Wars that took the campaign and stretched it out, like made it 10 times longer, and added a lot of like extra details to all the units and a lot of extra depth to all the things. So the game takes a lot longer to play, but there's a lot more strategy, a lot more things to consider.
Oh, okay, cool. So it's like bursting with content now.
Yeah.
All right. So are those your two runners? So those are your number 3, number 2 games of the year then?
Yes.
Okay. Well, before we get to your number one, I should mention I've made a top 10 list. I think I've only played about a dozen games this year. So here's what's not on the list because I didn't play it. Pokemon Sun and Moon, Federation Force, SMT #FE, Color Splash, Bravely Second, Fire Emblem Fates Conquest, Fire Emblem Fates Revelation, Shantae, Severed, Jotun, Axiom Verge, and Pokken Tournament. So, with all those... Oh, also Tadpole Troll was disqualified. So with all those out of the running, here's my very, very sad top 10. Number 10, Star Fox Guard. It's kind of fun, I guess. Number 9, Star Fox Zero. I liked it slightly more than Star Fox Guard, but it had some problems. Number 8, Zero Time Dilemma. It was alright. Number 7, Mega Man Legacy Collection. This is really a collection of games. It's not really its own game. I wanted to make it 10, and that's alright for what it is. Number 6, Fire Emblem Fates Birthright. I enjoyed it for a while, and then it just is too much Fire Emblem. Number 5, Rhythm Heaven Megamix. This is all around a very good Rhythm Heaven game. I wish there was a little bit more original content, but what's there's like 100 games, from the past games and plenty of new ones, so it's good. Number 4, Dragon Quest VII. This is slightly disappointing to me because I love the Dragon Quest series, and I think this game did a lot of things really well. Like it's very charming. It's got a lot of detail, and it's actually the writing is all really fun, but it's just so padded out. I think there are a lot of things that could have been streamlined, and I think the game balance is a little messed up. At a certain point, everything's super easy, so I feel like I'm just kind of going through the motions for a lot of the dungeons. Number 3 is Kirby Planet Robobot. I played my sister-in-law's copy, and it actually surprised me by being a really polished, really fun Kirby game. I mean, obviously Kirby games are always enjoyable, but I feel like since we had Return to Dreamland and then we had Triple Deluxe, I didn't really feel the need for another game of that style right away. But for what it is, it's really good. It's, all things considered, it's one of the stronger Kirby games, and it's got this cool ESP power now. That's definitely a big homage to Earthbound, which I found really cool. Number 2, and my Wii U Game of the Year, which nobody can guess. Chris, can you guess my Wii U Game of the Year? It's not Mighty Number 9.
Oh, well, that was my guess.
That was your guess? Okay. Number 2 is this is nobody's Wii U Game of the Year, because I don't think anyone else played it. But it's the Pinball Arcade.
Oh, right.
The Pinball Arcade for the eShop. This came out several years ago for all these other systems, every other system in existence. But it came out this year for Wii U, so it's eligible for this award. And I'd never played this before, but it's really cool because it's a faithful recreation of all these pinball machines over history. They've got the full 3D model of the pinball machine with all the decals and stuff. It's got this little history write-up for each one. The physics are really good. The sound is spot on. So I have a nostalgic connection to some of these pinball machines, because growing up with them. Also, there's one that we used to play all the time when I went to vacation and Thanksgiving, and I really liked. It's called Attack from Mars. They've got that in there, and it also introduced me to a bunch of new pinball machines that I think are just terrific. So I kind of got a big appreciation for pinball in general because of this game and its faithful recreations of these machines. And I just think it's great what the developers are doing. They're trying to keep something that's kind of on the way out. Like pinball, there's only so many of these machines, and they're all getting more weathered every day. I think it's really cool to have a digital library of these. I didn't buy every machine. You buy them separately. The game's free to start, and then you buy each machine, as you want it. But I did pick up a few of them, and I got a good amount of playtime from it. So I really enjoyed the Pinball Arcade. So, Chris, that brings us to our games of the year. I think I can guess yours, actually.
I bet you can. I don't know if we need to spend much time on the worst game of the year.
Oh, yeah. I didn't make one, but you should go. You should take...
I would expect we'd agree on this one. Mighty Number 9 is easily the shame of the year.
Mighty Number 9.
The Black Bit Fee.
The Black Bit Fee. Oh, it gets the Black Bit Fee. It's so sad. It's so sad, Chris. So Mighty Number 9, it wasn't just that it wasn't a great game. It was more that these levels of expectations, it was like the pedigree that was coming into it. behind all these Mega Man games, and Inafune, who helmed a bunch of the classic Mega Man games. It should have been something greater than what it was. And yeah, the end result was sadly a big missed opportunity. I think I might have to agree with you. I think of all the games I played this year, my number 9 was the weakest. What would you add about it?
I would add that it's more than just the weakness of the game itself. I think the development of the game and the PR of the game, and just it seems like Inafune is a really bad businessman.
Yeah, that was kind of an unfortunate wake up call to everyone involved, I think.
Yeah, it was very much a squandered opportunity.
The black BitF.
Yep.
Why did they make that?
All right, so the game of the year, in my opinion, was Doom.
Doom! I knew it!
It's just a great game. It's there's really only a few complaints I had about it, namely being the boss battles. And they added this really cool arcade mode to it that gives a lot of extra replayability and high scores. So so you can compete on each level. Each level in the game has been retooled specifically for high scores. So you can go back and compete with other people to get the high scores based on the same. Everyone gets the same loadout of weapons, the same loadout of all these things.
So you like this new Doom even more than Doom 3?
Oh yeah, I would say just slightly. Just a little bit.
I remember you being a very vocal critic of Doom 3 when it came out.
Yeah, it wasn't that good.
The series found its footing though.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is definitely the rebirth of the series this is the greatest rebirth of the series that I could have possibly hoped for. So I'm really excited for another one. Heck, I'd be excited. I was actually, they announced a new Quake game, but they're doing some weird thing with it where it's like totally not Quake. So I don't know why they decided to do that. But if they made a new Quake game that was like this, I would be all over it. But yeah, the game is just so fast and frenetic and kinetic, and the gameplay is very, very good. Very good. And the graphics are great too. So yeah, if you want a fast action game, I highly recommend Doom.
All right. And there's Chris's Game of the Year 2016.
Yep. How about you, Matthew?
Time for mine. Chris, can you guess mine? It's a little tougher to guess. I had a larger pool of things that I talk about.
No.
You cannot. No. My Game of the Year 2016 is Tadpole Trouble. Who cares? I'm putting it on there anyway. It's the best game. The best game. No, I'm just kidding. It wasn't Tadpole Trouble. I just wanted to do that. No, my number 1 game of the year is Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Spirit of Justice for the 3DS. It's the newest Ace Attorney game. It's the newest one. And it actually is very good. It's my second favorite in the series, behind only Trials and Tribulations. I enjoyed every one of the cases in this game, and I think it did a really good job with the characters, with the mysteries. It made some kind of big changes to the series that I think were for the better. Namely, I guess, regarding the ending. But all in all, I've never given this series Game of the Year, and I think it's a great third-party series, one of my favorites. And in kind of a bleak year, I think this game really hit the spot for me. So, yeah, good job, Capcom. Good job, Ace Attorney team. Thanks for this very, very worthy sequel in the series. I
would actually say the best Wii U game this year was Tadpole Trouble.
Really?
I'll say that quite honestly, yes.
All right, thanks. Now, wait, hang on. How many did you play, though?
Well, I played Tadpole Trouble, Mighty Number 9.
Okay.
Mario Color Splash.
Oh, all right.
Star Fox Zero.
Well, hey, all right. Thanks, Chris.
So, yeah, I'd say it's better than those games.
Cool. Well, you heard it from Chris's unbiased head.
I'm relatively unbiased.
Yeah, no. He definitely lets me know when he doesn't like stuff that I do. Yeah, thanks, Chris. I appreciate it.
Yep. All right.
So I wanna close our BitFs with one more thing. There were 4 games I played this year that did not come out this year, but they were all excellent. In fact, 3 of them would be Game of the Year if they had come out this year. So the first one I want to mention is 999. That's 9 persons, 9 hours, 9 doors. This wouldn't quite be better than my favorite game of the year, but it would rank number 3 behind Pinball Arcade and Phoenix Wright. I talked at length already about the Zero Escape series, but I really like this original game. The next one would be Advance Wars Dual Strike, which we had just talked about at length as well. And that game is just super fun. I put in like over 50 hours into it already, and just it keeps delivering. And the next game is Dragon Warrior 3 on the Game Boy Color. I'd never played Dragon Warrior 3, also known as Dragon Quest 3, but they were called Warrior for a while. So I tried out this Game Boy Color version, and it really surprised me. It's a game that for something made in like '87, if you count like the Japanese Famicom version, it's pretty advanced. It's got some really great, it feels very polished. It's got some really great little twist in it, and I think it ties into the original games in a really clever way. I think it might be the best of the series, actually, but it kind of comes with a caveat. You have to sort of be into old RPGs to appreciate it. But I really like Dragon Warrior 3. I thought it was great. And finally, my favorite of all of these games was Virtue's Last Reward, which is the second Zero Escape series game, which I thought was the pinnacle of the series and just a really great visual novel style game in general.
All right, well, that was a great list, Matthew.
All right.
I think those are all highly recommendable games.
Mm-hmm.
So this really wasn't that bad of a year for games. You just had to play games that were released, that were made in a different year.
That's true. That did kind of improve the year significantly for me.
Yeah.
Just kind of dabble in a couple other years. Well, I guess that wraps up our bit fees. Do we have any other final awards, or is that it?
No, that's all the awards I got.
Send all the losers home.
Yeah, I didn't really want to give Star Fox an award. I don't think it deserves one.
It could have been better. There were elements I liked about it, but it was, it could have been Star Fox 64 like quality.
2.
Well, it kind of was that kind of.
No, yeah.
And in a way, like story wise, they kind of redid.
It was the controls. That was the main problem I had.
But they were the best bad controls of the year.
Yeah, that is the only award it deserves.
All right, well, I guess we're done talking.
Yeah.
So, guys, listen, guys. We got a Switch presentation coming up. Oh wait, this is probably gonna air after that, huh?
Yeah, this will air out. So,
boy, that Switch presentation was really great / awful, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm really excited / disappointed now.
So we're gonna talk a lot more about the Switch and its upcoming games in a later podcast. But for now, I guess it's time to sign off. So thanks for tuning in once again. Go try Advance Wars, and if you like this podcast, tell your friends, show it to other people. Maybe they'll like it too. Yeah, that'd be great. We'd like lots of people to listen. Mm-hmm. That way we can keep making more content and feeling good about ourselves. Yeah, it really helps when the numbers go up. We feel all warm and fuzzy inside. It helps my heart. Yep. Don't hurt my heart, guys. Help Matthew's heart. You know, he needs you. He needs his heart. All right, smell you later. Smell your flip side later.